next up, what we're going to do is we're going to get into some education, I guess, for lack of better words, and some of your folks' training and preparation. We are just under 7 weeks. I think it's, I don't know exactly how many days it is, maybe about 47, 48 days left. Sorry to make everybody nervous, but yes, there's only about 40 some odd days left. But I tell you what, after 117 years, there's been thousands and thousands of people that have had to deal with 47 days out. So don't be too nervous. It's not the first time anybody's dealt with 47 days out. But we're really excited to have these training clinics to help get you ready, again, not only for residents that are here locally in Boston dealing with the New England weather. We're filming tonight to help maybe educate folks that are across the country, also dealing with their specific training and weather conditions to make sure that they're properly prepared for the race on April 15th. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our head coach of the BAA Running Club, and he'll give a slight introduction and then introduce you to his assistant coach, Terry Shea, and we'll talk a little bit more about our training, about how we're dealing with these storms with all their names, and Nemo and Zemo and whatever their names, and Q or whatever names they're coming up with every weekend to deal with these winter storms that are coming through, and help better get you prepared for April. So I want to introduce Mike Perrone, our head coach of the BAA Running Club.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I guess we've had a bit of weather since even our last clinic. We talked about the need for a training plan and the need to make adjustments. And as most people have found in the past 3-4 weeks, yeah, that's been the calling card for the past few weeks to the need to make changes. As we mentioned, we have 7 weeks to go to the marathon. It's hard to imagine, as Tom mentioned, we're in the doldrums of winter in general, and you're sort of in the middle of your marathon training. So maybe you were ill and got sick in December, and got your training back on track in the first part of the year, and then obviously we got a little sideswiped with these storms. So one thing you have to remember is the need for flexibility, whether, like I said, you've got some illnesses or the weather. So that's part of any training plan. No training plan says, okay, I have 180 days, consistent training, no interruptions, no work, no travel, no anything. So part of any training plan includes scheduled time off or unscheduled, which I had a lot of. So and there's some benefits to all this. A lot of people think training should be linear. I did 20 miles for 3 weeks, now I'm bumping it up to 30, then a couple of weeks later 40, 50, and it's a never-ending upward trajectory, but it's not. You do get some periods where you do need to back off your training. Maybe you feel a cold coming on, maybe you feel a hot spot in your foot or your shin or your knee, and you got to listen to your body and listen to the weather forecast and make adjustments. And it's the only one checking on anyone's training is yourself. So if you can be a little less hard on yourself and say, okay, the reason why I only ran 32 miles instead of my scheduled 42 miles is because I missed 2 days of training because of weather, or I need to take some time off. So some of the other hidden benefits of taking some time off: the rest and recovery. You train hard, your body needs some downtime to recover, to rebuild, to refuel, and get ready for the next training session. So as much as it sounds like, wow, I should be training consistently can mean 4 to 5 days a week with some days off. And a little later on, Coach Shea will give you some pointers on how to structure things, so maybe you don't have to worry about Wednesday's my long run day, but it's going to snow, so what should I do? So we'll go through some scenarios there that'll help you kind of make those adjustments. Runners by nature are kind of creatures of habit. They have set things they like to do it on certain days of the week, certain times of the day, but obviously the past few weeks have forced us all to reevaluate that, and who knows, maybe some of these changes are for the best, and you're like, wow, I didn't know I could get myself up at 4 a.m. to go for a run, or I didn't know I could run at 6 p.m. So maybe some of these things that we've been forced into are good things and carry through maybe the rest of the year or, you know, your next marathon. As I said, the main thing you want to do is focus on maintaining health and fitness, and how you do that is, you know, listen to your body. If things get serious, you might need to see your primary care physician to get a referral for something that's maybe orthopedic, something going on with your bones, your joints. Maybe another good habit to get into, a good habit is to maybe schedule a regular massage appointment, whether you feel like you need it or feel like you don't. Getting in something regular, and that could be every 2 weeks you see a massage therapist for a little extra care to get the muscles loosened, to release a lot of the tightness that might be coming on is important. And some of you that have been out there training in these conditions on the roads, you'll see what? The footing's not that great between snow, slush, sand, ice, so you're using a lot of different muscle groups, and you might wake up the next day and say, wow, I ran slow, but I'm sore, or I ran half as far as I wanted to, I'm sore. That's because if you're out there training in these conditions, you're using a lot of different muscle groups that you're normally not, you know, using in November when you're on the Charles River running in a forward motion at a set pace. So that's what you probably, some of you folks, and we'll have our questions and answers afterwards, and you guys can catch up with us afterwards. But I'm sure a lot of people have a little bit of tightness, soreness going on because of if you are out there training in the weather, you are going to experience some different body movements. Some people have needed to take some time off. One of the things, the first thing, you take some time off and you're chomping at the bit to get back. You're looking at your training program, you look at your schedule, you keep putting X's through the box, 0, 0, 0, 0. So then your body starts to come around and you're like, okay, that next day, it was supposed to be 5, I'm going to make it 10 miles because I've lost all this time. Lost time, lost miles, you can't make them back. As I said, there are some good things about that. You get the rest and recover, but when you do come back, you got to take it easy and kind of build back into things. If you know you crossed out all these days on your training program, and then like I said, the next day is 5 miles. We'd probably recommend just go out for 3 to 4 because your body's really not, you know, in the training cycle that it had been a week or so ago. So you've got to ease back into things. The worst thing you want to do if you're coming back is to overdo it and then have another setback. Where you're coming back from an illness and you ramp things up and your body's not quite where it should be, you're going to have a setback. And the main thing is just to consistently build back in, just like you're not starting over. You haven't lost that much fitness, believe it or not. I know some people say, we have some very experienced runners in our club and they miss 5 days and they're like, I'm so out of shape now. This is people that run 12 months a year, 6 to 7 days a week, and they miss 5 days in a row. Like, yeah, I felt really sluggish on my run today because I missed 5 miles. Well, that is true, and I've lost a lot of fitness. Well, you can feel a little sluggish, but you certainly haven't lost an appreciable amount of fitness. So, the main thing you want to do is, where are we going with all this? In 7 weeks from now, after you've successfully completed the Boston Marathon, and one statistic we like to use a lot is looking at our finishers rate. So we have like close to a 99% finishers rate. So if you make it to the starting line in Hopkinton 7 weeks from now, and you start when and where you're supposed to, you'll make it to the finish line and be an official finisher. So many times people say, there's no way I can do it, I've missed time, or this is my first marathon and I don't think I can do it. But trust us when we say the numbers are on your side if you make it to the starting line, that you'll make it to the finish line and be an official finisher. So the goals there are to get as fit as you can between now and the race, and with 7 weeks to go, there's not too much you can do. So the main thing is to stay healthy, and if that means taking a day off for something with illness or work stuff or the weather, that's fine. So I wish everyone the best. I'm going to introduce Coach Terry Shea. Terry's going to run us through some adaptations you can do to your training plan to make those adjustments, with some real live examples of some folks that we work with that have put up with the last, especially 3 weeks worth of weather to get themselves ready. So, thank you.
Hello, everyone. In the first clinic, Michael introduced the notion of having a training plan, something to guide you along the way, an outline to walk you through the months leading into Boston Marathon, especially with the key workouts or long runs that you do along the way. And then I followed up talking about how, as a coach, I would recommend giving thought to how you would want to adapt the training program. Once you have something in front of you that you're going to follow, how to make it work for you whenever inevitable things come up, such as weather, work, family life commitments, etc. I introduced that from my perspective on what I would advise to an athlete. But over the past few weeks, especially the past few days, I thought it was worthwhile taking an approach of where we actually poll the athletes and ask them, what challenges have you run into in the past few weeks, looking back? What did you do to sort of counteract that, to make the best of a non-ideal situation? And how did you deal with that mentally? Not just what did you do, but how does that affect your mindset going forward? So I got a lot of good feedback, and I wanted to share some of these comments and other things from the group of athletes. But first, just to recap what we covered in the first training program, things that you're going to run into. First off, unlike a lot of the elite athletes we saw in the video, our life is not centered around our training for the Boston Marathon. We have other more important priorities, work, family, etc. And a lot of these are going to pose challenges, no matter what the training plan might say for a given day. We may get sick, so illness, how do we deal with that? Also injury, we are at risk of that, just simply the conditions alone, not to mention the stress that we do put on our bodies as we are training to run the marathon. And of course weather, which don't need to say too much about that. So I mentioned some of the key characteristics that one should have as they deal with the challenges, and that's flexibility, patience, and focus on overall consistency. Even if individual days here and there don't work out as planned, sort of see things as a general process moving towards a consistent culmination and not getting too caught up on the details. So I've got a lot of, I'll call them case studies, because I would say it was not just hearing back from athletes, but what I actually interpreted from those as I read those, and asked what kind of qualities is shown by this person and how they dealt with such challenges. So first, we have a young woman, Rachel. Not long after NEMO, she was looking for an area in the morning to do her planned tempo workout. And her first attempt, she ended up falling on black ice. She thought the river was clear, but the thing with black ice is that it's tough to see. So upon that fall, she decided it just wasn't worth it under those conditions, so she held off on the workout. She gave it another go that evening, where she tried to make a workout on an indoor track. So she decided, outside's not so good today, I'm going to try to make it inside. This was foiled by the real-life circumstance of rush hour traffic trying to get to Reggie Lewis. So in attempt number 3, the following morning, Rachel sought out another stretch of the river or a different place where maybe she would have better luck with the footing. She found a stretch that was usable. It did mean that she had to modify the workout, but she got something in. And so Rachel's advice was to be flexible, and that if it doesn't work out, not to sweat it too much, just look to the next workout. What did I see in this? First off, persistence. She didn't just give up after one time or twice, but she made 3 attempts to get in a workout. Resourcefulness, she gave thought to all the possible options and where she might be able to fit it in. And then finally, sound judgment. She wasn't so tough as to require herself to get in the workout under any circumstances. And in this case, she probably avoided injury had she tried to continue on in the first case, which was perhaps a potential disaster running a workout on ice. Next, we have Chris. And Chris gave some feedback not on anything in the past few weeks because he knew a lot of people would be talking about weather, but he provided a really good example of a marathon he was training for a few years ago. Chris is a lawyer, and he found himself in a critical time of marathon training 3 weeks out, so not quite yet to the taper, a time where he'd still have to keep up his running, but he was in a different environment on Martha's Vineyard for a case where he'd be working 14, 15-hour days. That sounds exhausting, but Chris decided he was still going to do his run at night. And what he found that he would explore, different areas of the vineyard along the ocean, and found out that what might have been sort of miserable running so late after exhausting days was actually a lot of fun. He mentions right straight out that he loved it, and that while unpredictable, he says that he was not going to let an entire summer of training waste away just during this tough eight-day stretch. He has a great summary where he really summarizes well all the challenges we've been running into recently. And he also makes the key point that never in his 10 years has he been able to follow to the day a 16-week training program. That he knows that real life comes up in the way, and that's the reality, and you should expect that. And it doesn't mean the end of the world. Clearly, Chris shows dedication. I have to admit, I would have been pressed to lace up the shoes at 10 at night after those long work days. Clearly dedicated. A sense of exploration. Michael mentioned that a lot of times as runners are creatures of habit, we want to stick to a routine. But he found that he would just try something new, maybe get a bit lost, and in that sense of discovery, he ended up getting really good runs in. Accountability. He knew all the work that he put in, and he felt that he owed it to himself to get through this rough patch by at least maintaining, maybe not putting really long runs in on these long days, but at least maintaining the work that he had developed after 3 months of training. Another example is Jonathan, a PhD student in economics. He references some of the past few weeks' challenges and how he had to rearrange some of the days. He and his teammates knew in advance that Nemo, which he was calling Snowmageddon, they knew it was coming. In fact, they knew it even by the time of their Wednesday workout, that they were going to not only have to modify the upcoming weekend, but they should also take into account how hard they were going to work out that Wednesday night, having decided that they were going to move up their long run to a Friday. It turned out that a lot of people had work canceled on that Friday, even that Thursday night, so in a way it worked out well for some of these people that didn't have to wake up so early. Anyway, for Jonathan, the key for him is priorities. He knows that with school, he can't do it all. So if he can't do it all, he finds out what does he need the most. And that's sort of how he approaches the training schedule. He picks out the key things. And for him, it's the long run, specifically getting a stretch of full marathon pace in. So it was okay for him to maybe have a little bit of a lighter workout in the few days before that. So, again, prioritization. He picks out the most important things for him. Flexibility, we've been repeating that throughout. How to rearrange the thing to make the circumstances work for him. And finally, confidence. Given that he knows what he needs most, and if he can get those done, he's not going to be shaken by some missed days, missed workouts, things not going quite to plan. And for Jonathan, he really demonstrated this 1 year ago when on our team he was one of the scoring runners on the winning Boston BAA marathon team in the Boston Marathon team competition. On paper, Jonathan was probably not one of our 3 fastest. Even though he finished him on the 3, he probably wasn't one of our top maybe 5 or 8. But I think it really showed his characteristics on that tough day of weather we had last year. Just a few more. Kirsten, unlike some of the others, she is training for her first Boston Marathon, has only done one, ran a qualifier in her first. So very young, and she could probably let herself off the hook more easily. But again, in advance of that Nemo blizzard, she consulted with some of her friends and training partners, and again, they moved up the workout as well. For her, it meant getting everything in before work. She mentioned she was out on the road before 6 a.m., which I think for her is just very different for her schedule. Not used to running in the morning, certainly not that early. So again, sign of flexibility, motivation, very motivated athlete, and again, prioritization. What's the important thing? It's getting in the long run. The pace isn't so important. Let's just make sure we get that in. Sean. Sean, another relatively newcomer to the marathon, training for his first, having completed just one last year. Sean focuses on the importance of injury prevention, or what to do when injured. Unfortunately, in Sean's case, after Nemo, he's had 2 bad falls on the roads. So not once, but twice, he's found brief stretches of required cross-training, elliptical trainer, pool running, swimming. And so he advises on that. And he mentions when you feel something coming on. In his case, it was sudden. It was a fall first on Memorial Drive, and then again on Beacon Street. I was with him both times. I think I'm cursing him. But he mentions in advance of something coming on, if you sense unusual pain or discomfort, try to address it as early as possible. And then if it does look like there is something coming on, be willing to adjust the training plan very early on. Because sometimes a couple of days might save a few weeks or more in the end. He also advises on how to try to get through some cross-training while keeping your sanity, breaking things up, trying to do at most just equal time. If you had allotted an hour to run and you can't, try to find something to do for that hour. Again, his mantra was write things in pencil and not pen, so be flexible, especially in a Boston winter. Self-awareness, assess how you're feeling along the way. I know that Sean keeps a training log, so he can sort of review how he's been feeling, compare that to how he is feeling on the day, and see if there's any trends developing that might be potential injuries. And he takes initiative. When he did, unfortunately, hurt something, he didn't just sit around and wait until the pain disappeared. He took action both in the course of finding treatment to get healthy, as well as finding alternate activities to maintain the fitness he had developed. And then finally, very experienced marathoner, Caroline has done 15. Caroline has a family, and she's training for her 8th Boston. She lays out pretty much the reality of this month. What happened, what she had to do in the first blizzard. Her weekend did not go to plan. In the end, it meant a treadmill run on Sunday. The next weekend, that again did not go to plan. Another treadmill run, and which was cut short because she had to catch a train. They weren't going to drive, I think, in the snow that day. Had to catch a train to get to the Disney on Ice event. And then last week she had to make a judgment call. She had planned to go to the Amherst 10 miler on Sunday, but come Thursday, Friday, there was talk of a big storm that we were going to get for the 3rd weekend in a row. So she had to sort of weigh the benefits of sticking to the plan and getting the race in if weather did cooperate, versus the risk of losing the entire weekend if she couldn't go to the race, but also took it really easy Saturday and ended up not making use of that day. She decided that given the past few weekends, she would take the sure bet of using the nice morning, Saturday morning, to get the long run in on her own later in the afternoon, and then just miss out on the race as she did. She also advises to be patient and try to be creative on what your options might be. So she has prioritization, not just with her running, but in life. She's a really good example of a person that cares very much about her running. She's very motivated. But for her, the running works around her life, her family, and not the other way around. Uses good judgment. She made the right call of getting the definite good training session in with Ilona, even if it meant missing a planned race. And she's probably looking at the calendar and seeing if there's another race this weekend, in which there is. And finally, as she mentions, a lot of this means being creative and thinking, outside of the normal options of how you might be able to do all this. So, as I sort of went through all of these, a lot of the same key characteristics come up in all of these individuals. Everyone's clearly dedicated. They don't sort of look outside, see some snow, and say, okay, I'm not running today. They're dedicated, they're motivated. They're flexible. Okay, I can't do plan A, so what's plan B, or plan C, or plan D? They're not only flexible, but they take initiative. They don't, on the morning, look out, see snow, and say, okay, what can I do now? Days in advance, they're trying to identify how the upcoming conditions might impact what they have planned in the next few days. They are thoughtful. They don't just move one day around and say that's that. They give thought to how changing the schedule under one set of circumstances might have an impact on other workouts that week, the next week, etc. They understand that there can be a domino effect. By making one change, you might have to make some other changes as well, so you're not adding too much stress. I think Michael may have mentioned sometimes people miss a few days and they just think they have to make up for all of that, and then they double what they might have done by missing one day. And so you have to be intelligent about all of that. And finally, something else I realized, a lot of times they're talking about, oh, I was meeting the girls, or met my teammates, etc. There's a social aspect for a lot of these runners. They seek out company. As dedicated as they are, they know that running alone all the time, especially through the winter like this, can be tough. And a lot of times it helps to have others around, making it both fun, but also people that might be able to push you to a higher level of ability for marathon day. So that concludes my section. And again, just over these next 7 weeks, continue to think about not only the importance of the training plan, but the importance of making it work for you under the tough winter we've been having. So thanks everyone. I think we're going to go to Q&A session.
You want to do the long run, preparing for your long run?
Yes.
Yes.
So, because the final clinic will approach race day somewhat close, wanted to cover one area that, while 7 weeks we're not to the last long run yet, it is a very important key thing. And so now's when you might want to start thinking, giving some general thought to it. And it especially works given the topic of being flexible. First off, the date. You might pencil it in, and generally I would advise 3 weeks out as being the last quote-unquote long run. That might be the longest, or if not the longest, perhaps the most demanding long run. However, 4 weeks might work better for some people. 2 weeks may work better for others, depending where you are. Those that might need to do it 4 weeks out might be those who need a longer taper. They've put in a lot of good training, and if they push things too much in the next month or so, they might 3 weeks of a taper might not be enough. Others might be building and building and building their training. Perhaps they're off to a late start, or had some injuries, perhaps, during the time. And they may be fine going up at 2 weeks out, especially if it's a Saturday marathon. Then you're talking 16 days out rather than just 14. So anywhere in that 2 to 4 week range is advised, probably 3 weeks out. Where to do the last long run? We recommend training on a course that you'll be training on terrain that will be like what you're going to encounter on race day. So for us, that would mean getting onto the Boston course would probably be ideal. There you're going to get a mix of uphills, downhills, and level terrain. A lot of times we talk about the uphills and downhills of the Boston course, but if there is long segments, especially early on or in the middle of the race, that do have level terrain where you can really sort of practice even pacing without large fluctuations in your pace or effort. Another great thing about the Boston Marathon course is any given weekend, you're likely to run into a lot of other people training on the course, training for Boston, especially as you get into that 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out. You're going to see huge groups. You'll literally see hundreds of runners. So it's great. If you're having a tough run, others can help you through it, just being out there with people. And I'm inspired every winter, spring that I'm out there, especially those last few long runs. It's great. It's really exciting. I would advise, though, on your very last long run, or once you're inside 3 or 4 weeks, to be careful with hard downhill running. You want to prepare for Boston by running hills, both up and down, really getting used to the pounding that your quads are going to take in the race. However, the stress that is put on them in training by running hard on downhill is something you need some time to recover from, the entire taper time. And so you just do want to be cautious in those last few weeks. Just a few quick guidelines on pace. The first priority with this final long run is using it to make sure that you know that you will be able to cover the distance on race day. So at first pace, it doesn't really matter. Just come out of it knowing that you have a handle on getting through the 26.2 miles. So that might mean a 20-mile, 22-mile long run, where you're not necessarily concerned about what your average pace is at any point. The more experienced marathoners, for those that have done them and completed them in the past, you probably are fine. You know that you can do this because you've done it before. So then you might focus more on, well, what pace do I want to cover this at? Or do I want to cover certain paces at my goal marathon pace? And the question is, yes, you probably want to get a feel in this last long run of what you're going to do on race day. So we might suggest stretches. We mentioned 8 to 12 miles, but that's really a guideline. Some may go less. Others may go more. I talked to a gentleman who's up to about 16 miles near his goal marathon pace. And if he can do that now in training, he's probably in a good position for race day to handle that, especially when he notes these are not all-out efforts, which this last marathon long run should not, preparation long run should not be. You want to make sure you are challenged during it, but also making sure you're saving something for race day, the day that really matters. So. And then finally, this last long run is a chance to not just get the distance in and maybe perhaps check in with your pace. It's also test out perhaps the shoe you might wear, the apparel you might wear. What are you going to do on race day weekend in terms of what you eat the night before or morning of? Well, this is a great chance to practice that. Finally, if you think you may be taking stuff during the race, carry some energy gels on you, whatever that might be. Chance to practice it in training, make sure it works for you on that day. And there might even, if you're out on the course on that 3-week out weekend, there might be even other groups that have stations along the way, perhaps in the Newton Hills, that are fine with you stopping off and grabbing a couple drinks of water or Gatorade So, finally, yeah, important to think about these extra things that matter on race day, as you'll see. So that's all. Now I think we're moving to the Q&A.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Terry. So hopefully we've been able to give you a little bit of help and assistance. We all know that everybody has to qualify to get to the Boston Marathon, but for some of you, Boston Marathon is going to be your second marathon ever. So we don't expect you to be experts in the sport, and while we like to consider ourselves experts, we just hope that we can parlay some of our experiences, whether it be from the coaching aspect, my personal aspect of being in the sport for years, or anybody else who's affiliated with the organization, to help get you better prepared. Because it's, while we want to be able to tell people that we're the fastest marathon ever because of their qualifying requirements, our main goal is that you guys have fun, that you have an experience that you think about for years on. And that's the biggest thing. The emails that I get from people that talk about just how this has just been one of the bucket list, to use the cliche. And we want to make sure that this is your bucket list.